probably agree on.
Yeah, the playoff team for sure.
I tell you what, I don't think there was a more accurate state. And
if they struggle again, I don't think there's any way you can keep Alex Critch. But
what's going on, y'all? Bud Elliott here, back again for another edition of Summer School. That's our Cover 3 podcast, college ball preview series for the summer, as summer school implies. Today, it's North Carolina. That's Adam Smith of Inside Carolina. For my money, and we've got a lot of them in this network, I think it's the best team site in the sport. Like, the way they run it is just special. And the community over there, they're on it. Like, if you have a North Carolina take, you have better have researched it pretty good. That's why we have Adam Smith on, so I don't pop off on Cover 3 with uneducated North Carolina takes. What's going on, man?
What an introduction. I guess your check has to be in the mail now, huh? Gosh. It's great to be back, bud. You know I love you. One of my great friends in the biz. I appreciate the intro. And yeah, gosh, it's the summer already. Let's see if we can hold on to this summer as long as we can. I feel like camp's coming. You know what I mean?
We could use a little bit of that cooler North Carolina weather down here in Orlando. It was we got some rain this morning, but now it's nice and steamy. So we got the 96, but feels like 99. So not but 100% humidity though, if you're into that kind of thing. Which
the surface of the sun, then.
So. Yeah, reptiles seem to like that weather a little more than people do, but everybody keeps moving here. So let me start on the defensive side of the ball here. So Jeff Collins is in as the new defensive coordinator, has a lot of veteran talent to work with. So how do you think it's going to look different than it did last year?
Well, I think it needs to look different. Rim shot, boom. The minister of mayhem, Bud, I believe Jeff Collins is known as. We'll never forget him having the Georgia Tech guys lift weights on the sidelines pregame.
Oh, yeah.
Woo, what a time that was. But no, I think it's going to look similar in some ways in terms of maybe a schematic, maybe a pre-snap. But it needs to look different, obviously, in the production. Otherwise, you would still have Gene Chizik or even Jay Bateman in the roles. Mac Brown's really sort of gone through these. He's burned through these defensive coordinators the last 5 years. This is the third one, and he's been back for Mac 2.0 for 5 years. I think, this sounds not to sound corny, but I think Jeff Collins' personality has been great so far as we sit here in the summer. This is a high energy guy, and it's not lip service. The very first spring practice they had in March, when we're deep up in basketball season and you go out there and you're like, football. Okay, let's see how these guys are doing. It was apparent from the jump. I think it was Javari Ritzy, one of the big defensive linemen. I'm pretty sure it was Javari Ritzy, had a bit of a brain fart, hit one of the quarterbacks, when you're not supposed to touch the guy. Well, didn't hit him, sort of sideswiped him. So he gets in trouble and he has to do push-ups. Where here comes Jeff Collins on like a full sprint, sort of chastising him, but also loving him up. And he's down there doing the push-ups. They're face-to-face, the big helmet, 300-pound man, Jeff Collins, 50-year-old white guy in his hoodie, the energy and enthusiasm. Mac had some line. Mac Brown had some line that he wakes up like he's on peels. I think he's going to. I think they're going to generate the pressure or die trying. It's interesting to see the way they have done things, at least in the spring. I understand you're getting a vanilla look sometimes, but he will walk. He'll walk guys up. And then they're dropping back and the pressure's coming off the edge. There should be an opportunity, I think, for UNC safeties like a Stick Lane, like a Jakeem Harris, like a DeAndre Boykins, who's a playmaker coming off an ACL that he missed last year, to wreak some havoc in these backfields and make some plays. There were times during the spring where UNC's defense really lit up that offensive line and had some of their quarterbacks running for dear life. So I think that, you know how it is. You know how it is at this time of year. Everyone wants to be aggressive. Everyone wants to pressure the quarterback. It's like in basketball. No, have you ever heard a basketball coach get hired and say, we're going to slow it down? You know, you know what I mean? Like every coach,
Not unless he's been real successful with it before, and it's like, hey, like you know what you're getting. I'm going to run this Princeton stuff, and yeah,
sure. I'm sure Tony Bennett didn't
right,
say,
yeah, exactly.
but you know what I mean? Like every freaking basketball coach is
Best
like,
shape
we're
of their
gonna play
life, of course, in the off season. You know, yeah.
everyone says it, but I think, well, I at least I know from what I've seen, he's going to bring the heat. You know, I think, you know, it's to majorly oversimplify it. If you look at Gene Chizik's personality, and this is not a knock on Gene was just more quieter. That's just how he was. I mean, Collins is a live wire. I mean, he is all over the place.
Yeah.
He's hilarious too. He said one day when we talked to him that you know, his wife and daughter family still back in like the Atlanta area before they move up to Chapel Hill, and he FaceTime his daughter at night, and she would want like a scouting report on one guy every night, you know. And he was like, yeah, you know, we get to some guys like Power Eccles and Travis Shaw, and that takes up a lot of bedtime, you know, like so I mean, I personally think that a guy like him is who they needed. Even though Gene was there for 2 years, he had become, you know, this lightning rod for the fan base. You know, if something went wrong, they were going to blame Gene. I mean, the guy won a couple national championships.
Yeah.
You know, it just didn't work out with Gene, and you know, I think there's a lot to sort of look forward to with Jeff Collins, and you know, we've heard that his meetings are high energy, so I think there's a lot to like there, and I think it'll be interesting to see when UNC opens the season at Minnesota, like how much they're coming after these guys, how they do it. They were really good about disguising stuff in the spring, I thought.
Let's talk sleepers. Like, so ACC Media Day, I'll be there. I think you'll be there.
Supposed
Who's
to
a
be.
guy? Yeah, I mean, I may have to go depending on. I don't know how many days I can go to this year because CBS also has Big Ten rights, so I may need to run over there for a minute. So we're at ACC Media Day. Who's a guy or two who won't be first or second team All ACC in the preseason, but will have a real chance to make that postseason team?
Man, that's a great question. I don't know why that like a guy like Elijah Huzzy jumps out, defensive back. I mean, that's like my knee jerk reaction because I'm looking over the 2D period. I mean, a guy like Bryson Nesbitt at tight end is an All ACC player. A guy like Amorian Hampton at running back, obviously one of the best backs in the country. He's an All American. You know, Kamen Rucker is an All ACC player. I will put me on the spot here a little bit, but I will go Elijah Huzzy right now, who is a DB. He was a starter last year. He was a transfer from East Tennessee State who came in last year, and you know, he was one of those guys that had sort of wowed you in spring practice with the ball skills, always picking off passes or making plays, and you're like, well, let's see what happens in the fall. Well, they get to the fall, and DeAndre Boykins, who I had mentioned earlier, he tears his ACL, and they have to move Huzzy from corner. They had him as a starting corner to the star position, like the nickel corner in the slot there. They call it star, but that's what it is. The nickel defensive back corner. And I don't know that he played out of position because he still made plays. He returned a punt for a touchdown at Pitt. He had a pick six and a punt return touchdown.
That was a wild game.
It was a wild game. I mean, Pitt lost. That was the last. Who was Pitt starting quarterback? That was the last time he played a game at quarterback.
Dracovic.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Then they put in Yarnell. There was like 3 guys they played. I think he was done, and then they put in Yarnell after that.
That was the game that Drake May threw a left-handed touchdown pass to Kobe Paysour when he was like getting dragged down. I mean, it was total Drake May backyard football. I think he had 2 or 3 passes where deep post and the guy gets dragged down at the 1, you know, and you talk to Drake after and he's like, yeah, I thought I had 3 touchdown passes there. But yeah, Huzzy's a playmaker. I mean, he's not a guy, if you're a UNC fan listening to this or watching this, you know Elijah Huzzy. You know, I don't know that around the ACC and even nationally that he would jump off the page to you, but he's going to be back at corner on the outside. I think UNC has 2 good corners in Marcus Allen and Elijah Huzzy. These guys, you know, Marcus Allen is long and rangy. I mean, these guys can play. So I will say Elijah Huzzy because of the playmaking skills. I mean, he has the ability to change a game. He has changed some. He got hurt last year, and played through it. He did not miss a game, but he had an ankle, and it sort of slowed him down a little bit later in the season. But that guy's a baller. If you throw his way, they didn't throw Marcus Allen's way a lot. I mean, think about. I'm sure you probably watched the South Carolina game last year when they opened the season in Charlotte. South Carolina, Spencer Rattler was not throwing Marcus Allen's way. They were throwing the other way to a kid named Tayon Holloway, who was starting at the other corner. But you're gonna have to pick your poison between Marcus Allen and Elijah Huzzy. And heck, we're seeing Huzzy make a bunch of plays this spring. I'll go with him.
If Spencer Rattler was running an Apple Watch that day, I'd love to see how many steps he had, because North Carolina was all over him. And I remember watching. I was texting our buddy Chip Patterson, like, "Oh, dude, Chip, South Carolina can't block. Like this is."
He was 9 sacks.
Record those guys. They tore them up. That was that was something else, man.
Funny little anecdote for you. One of my good friends, I'm not going to name him because he might be embarrassed. He told me a day or two after that, big UNC fan. And he said, Adam, if we can just get 8 or 9 sacks a game, I really think this defense is going to be much improved. And it was a genuine comment. And I was thinking, I was about to say his name. I was thinking blank. Yeah, if they get 8 or 9 sacks a game, I think that's going to be about 100 plus for the season.
That would be a record.
I think they would be okay.
I mean, shoot, that actually might be an all-time college ball record. I would have to think so.
I would wonder what the number is, honestly. I mean,
that 96 Florida State team with Peter Boulware and Renard Wilson that beat the heck out of Danny Werfel in the first matchup. They had to have 4 or 5. I know they had some games with like 11. But nowadays with all the RPO stuff people run, like the ball is out quick. It's hard to maintain that, certainly.
That FSU team, those were later in the 90s. Those were my college years, and they came to UNC for a Judgment Day game, which was pretty epic by UNC standards in terms of the scene. I know it was old hat, pun intended, Bobby Bowden. I know it was old hat for FSU by that point, but it was like pretty neat deal. I think it's 97 or 98 in Chapel Hill, and the Seminoles smacked them around a little bit.
Carolina got them back though, like one of those games in the early 2000s for sure. And then they had the one game where the kicker made the kick there in Doak. Yeah, exactly.
Nick Weiler. Yeah. Julius Peppers, the game in Chapel Hill he was Julius Peppers. He went crazy. He went crazy that day. Yeah, I think it was 2001 maybe or 2.
We were talking to a kid the other day at a recruiting event, and he's a multi-sport kid. And we're like, the only guy that this dude really reminds us of is Julius Peppers. And one of the other reporters is like, hey, don't tell him that, because he doesn't think that's he's like, no, I don't want to be compared to Julius Peppers. I want to be myself. I'm like, bro, Julius Peppers is like a freak of freaks. I know you're not born probably like when Julius Peppers was playing college ball, but like he played some real minutes for Carolina basketball too. Like,
he was a contributor, important contributor on a Final Four team. I mean, I don't have to tell you. He was a god among me. I mean, seeing him in person too, unbelievable.
I want to DM this kid a YouTube. Be like, please watch this before you're like, hey, that's disrespectful to compare me to Julius Peppers. Like,
I mean, it's got to be the highest compliment. I mean, who would he want to be compared to? Do you think? I guess just somebody current.
Yeah, I did not. I'm not going to dime him out because he's 17. And
right.
I was pretty dumb at 17 too. But yeah, I'll tell you after the show, and you'll laugh because he's a freak and actually a super nice kid. So
okay. Well, good luck to him.
Absolutely. Where can they most survive if they have to dip into their depth?
Well, receiver would be one position. I do not think the answer would be offensive line. I think that's a question mark. Yeah, I think depth on the interior, like the 2 D tackle spots, is a question mark. But I would say that UNC's deepest positions, other than tight end, where you have Bryson Nesbitt and John Copenhaver and Jake Johnson through the portal. There are a slew of wideouts I'm looking at here on the roster. There are a slew of defensive backs. They have like 6 true freshman DBs, 2 redshirt freshmen. They have a lot of talent at those 2 positions. I'll just say wideout since we haven't talked about the offense that much. I think there's an interesting and healthy mix of veteran guys like a J.J. Jones, like a Nate McCullum, like a Kobe Paysor, like a Gavin Blackwell, who have played a lot of college football, who have been productive, guys that have caught passes from Sam Howell, not just Drake Maye the last 2 years, but Sam Howell. It's if you look at UNC's wideouts, there is not a Josh Downs, there is not a Tez Walker, but there are plenty of Antoine Greens. Just to throw a name out there, I would say and they have some young guys like a true freshman Jordan Shipp who just got to campus, Alex Taylor who just got to campus, Chris Culliver who's been in the program 1 year. These guys are going to be guys next summer, the next couple summers when we're doing this. I mean, these guys are coming. I've gotten to have a pretty good relationship with some of these guys. Some of our staff at Inside Carolina's got a pretty good relationship with some of these guys. And one of the veteran guys, wideouts, mentioned to one of our other staff members, like, I'm supposed to be teaching Jordan Shipp the ropes. This guy's about to take my position. So I would say what I think. People say they're loaded. That's such a cliche term, but I think they could withstand, to answer your question, injuries at that position. I think they could withstand some injuries in the defensive backfield, but because of the talent that is going to be at a backup spot, even a number 3 spot, Christian Hamilton's a good player in the slot. I think you could make a hockey line change. It would be in a perfect world, you could run these vets out there. You could be blowing somebody out, and you say, "All right, freshmen, sophomores, guys, let's go." And like tell Jordan Shipp to go long. Tell Chris Culliver, this guy can jump. I bet you he could give you a dunk any way you wanted it on the basketball court.
Nice.
So I think those are positions to watch out for. I think you have some guys you can depend on. Nate McCullum caught 15 passes against Minnesota. I bet say Wisconsin against Minnesota last year. Kobe Paysor is a good ACC wideout. He's a guy that can play the slot or the outside. I mean, he's good player. J.J. Jones is a proven vertical threat, sure hands along the sideline. I mean, they have some proven commodities, and then they also have, if you're a Carolina football fan, you're excited. You're excited about these younger dudes that have come from Charlotte and Greensboro and some of these places that are coming.
Absolutely. The other thing on this, when I see a team that has some means to go out and get somebody in the portal if they need to, and they lose somebody important, to the draft or wherever, like Tez, and they choose to stand pat, that I think it's, just maybe this is just kind of, free game for people at home. If you got a team that's like a good program and they don't take anybody in the portal at a position, they probably like what they have in the room. So I'm really encouraged to hear you say that. Now, a place they did take some guys is quarterback, which is understandable because they lost. I'm a Drake Maye stan. Maybe I'll be wrong on that. I think from an ability level, he was just a little different than Howell, and I mean better. There's a drop off here, I would assume, if you lose a top, what do you go, 5th at quarterback? Third. Okay. So
you are a Drake Maye stan though, because I cannot help but be one after being around him for 2-3 years.
Yeah. That Pitt game, Pitt was actually pulling off some stuff, and then Drake Maye just kind of called game. He's like, "Oh, I'm just better than everybody on the field today, and I'm going to show you here. Watch this." And just, some of those plays were stupid good. So we know there's a drop off at quarterback. I would assume. Who, is there an actual quarterback battle here come fall?
Oh my gosh, you're a smart man too, because I know how you slow played the quarterback question. Maybe not slow played is the right word, but you warmed me up a little bit. An interview's kind of like a date. You don't want to ruin it off the jump. You want to get somebody comfortable. Man, there's a quarterback competition. I don't think there's an NFL quarterback like a Sam Howell or a Drake Maye in this quarterback room. I could be wrong because I am not, an expert on quarterback play, but So you got three guys. You have Max Johnson, who they brought in through the portal, formerly of LSU and Texas A&M. You have Connor Harrell, who has backed up Drake Maye for the last 2 years. Interestingly enough, now you have Jacoby Criswell, who also backed up Drake Maye, who also backed up Sam Howell years ago. He used to come in and mop up duty and play the fourth quarter after Sam Howell would take a seat. I think I think we could do an hour on UNC's quarterback situation. I think that it's going to tell the story of the season. Is that dramatic enough for you?
Yeah.
I just think that I think that UNC goes through spring football with Connor Harrell and Max Johnson as their quarterbacks, and they're competing, sharing the reps, 50-50 split. And then after spring is over, and this has something to do with the portal windows too, I get it. They go and they get Jacoby Criswell from Arkansas, who began his career at UNC, spent a couple years at UNC, then transferred to Arkansas, and he's set behind KJ Jefferson at Arkansas. He's from Arkansas, so you're kind of thinking home state there, good place for him to be. Where this is, as we know, this is the summer. I don't know who UNC starter is going to be, and that's not just please read our stuff. I think if you judged it on how they played this spring, Connor Harrell would have to be UNC starter. I don't know how much Jacoby Criswell can catch up in the fall. I don't know if Max Johnson can overtake Connor Harrell in the fall. This thing could go three ways.
Sure.
Because in my opinion, they didn't bring UNC, Max Johnson through the portal for him to sit and just hold a clipboard. That's just not. He's the son. He has the pedigree. The son of Brad Johnson, 17-year NFL veteran, I think it is. Won a Super Bowl in Tampa. Former Florida State quarterback. And there's a lot of history there with Mac Brown. Technically before the portal window opened in the winter, Max had already committed to UNC because he knew he was out of A&M. So we will see. Connor Harrell is a fantastic athlete playing quarterback, and he is a great guy. Valedictorian of his high school class in Alabama. He famously, I have written things, triumphant things on Connor Harrell about him playing state playoffs with broken finger on his hand, throwing hand, and then them winning. He is a super athlete. He is small for quarterback sizes. He's about 6 foot tall, 6'1", I think they list him at, but he's not 6'1". Max looks the part. He's a big guy, 6'5". He's a lefty. I'm not sure about his arm strength, but he can get you the ball there. Mac, I've been doing the joke that Mac, among his talking points to illustrate Max Johnson's experiences, Max Johnson threw over 900 passes in the SEC. That is Mac's line. Technically it's 734 because I did go and look that up. But yeah, this guy started for LSU and this guy started for Texas A&M. So, I just think that, if we're reading the tea leaves, it doesn't take a fortune teller or a clairvoyant to say, that's a red flag going up when you see them go get a guy out of the portal after the spring is over and the quarterback situation is already in flux because you put it even more in flux. You've put a third ingredient in there. So I think if they get competent quarterback play, that they can have a nice season. This is, a team that's won 8 or 9 games 3 of the last 4 years. How they've started. They went to an ACC championship game in 2022, 9-1 in 2022, 6-0 in 2023 before the wheels fell off. There's a guy named Omarion Hampton at running back. Pretty good. So, yeah, I'm sorry to be so winding with the answer, but I think this is everything. I think this is going to be everything for UNC is what kind of play they get out of either Connor Harrell or Max Johnson or Jacoby Criswell, or if they start Connor Harrell, if they have to go to Max Johnson or whoever. Who knows? It could be Jacoby Criswell, who didn't go through spring practice, starting August, whatever it is. It's a Thursday night at Minnesota on Fox. So, we'll have to see. It should be an interesting fall camp, and I'm sure we're going to get they're neck and neck. That's the thing. To give you an unscripted anecdote here. I had someone who I really trust, who has never steered me wrong, tell me in 2022, in the spring of 2022, Sam Howell had just left the program, had started for 3 years. The candidates to replace Sam Howell were a guy named Drake Maye and a guy named Jacoby Criswell. Criswell had played more than than Maye, because Drake had redshirted the year before. I had a person tell me that Drake Maye is going to be a superstar, and this thing is not even close in terms of the quarterback competition. And I said, well, Max says it's really neck and neck. And that person told me it is not neck and neck. And they are terrified that if they name Drake the starter now, that Jacoby will get in the transfer portal and transfer. I believe he used the word, they are spooked by what might happen, because then you would have no experience behind a guy who's never started a game. But that was supposedly a quarterback race that went right down to the Monday before they opened against FAMU, when Drake Maye threw 5 touchdown passes and Sam Howell tweeted, talk to me, Draco. And the legend of Drake Maye was born. And I remember thinking, I think they were right. I think it wasn't that close.
I've got a similar story for you. So when I was covering Florida State in 2013, there was a guy named Jameis Winston, and there was a guy who Jimbo insisted was neck and neck, named Jacob Coker.
Okay.
Now, thing is, and I think North Carolina fans will enjoy this story, because obviously Jameis turned out pretty damn well, won the Heisman. They, were the highest scoring team of all time.
National champions, right?
They were. Jacob Coker won a national title 2 years later for Alabama in 2015. So, and people were like, there's no way Jacob Coker's neck and neck with Jameis. But maybe there's some signs there. Maybe Criswell can be that guy and come back after some more seasoning and really have, a special year.
It would be quite the full circle thing, wouldn't it?
It would, man. Is it crazy to think this defense could be better than the offense this year?
No. Okay. No, I don't think so. Well, how do you define better? Just productive?
Sure, I think so.
Yeah, they certainly can be. I feel like half the things I say bash Gene Chizik, but I feel like I think improvement can certainly be found defensively. The defense was very bad in 2022, and everyone viewed it as, sort of the albatross, little literature there for you, around Drake Maye's neck. And it was kind of like, oh my God, they won 9 games in spite of the defense. And they did improve. There was improvement there last year, but yeah, to answer your question about 2024, I think there's plenty of a runway for them to sort of take off, and it's in the pressure numbers. It's in the tackle for losses and the sacks and the QB pressures and the pressure rate and stuff like that. That's I think the Jeff Collins thing could be a sneaky good hire.
I do too, especially because if we think about the idea of playing complementary football, right? If you're going to be fairly up tempo, which they've been, and Max seems to like, even back in the days at Texas, they were kind of up tempo there at the end. It seems to be something he believes in. Assuming that continues, as you mentioned, if they get confident quarterback play, you know what they're not going to face? Good quarterback play on this schedule. Think about it. So they get Florida State and NC State.
Yes.
But no Miami, no Clemson, no Louisville, who I do think, there's some chance Louisville's kid is the best quarterback in the league. I don't think it's a high chance, but there's a non-zero chance, just the way that people who were at Oregon and at Texas Tech talked about him. And it's like, if he could only stay healthy, there's really something there, which is probably why Braum took a chance on him in the portal. No Virginia Tech and no SMU, where I know they're new, but Preston Stone can spin it a little bit. If you got 2 good corners, like you're saying, we got a bunch of veteran defensive linemen and a DC who wants to send it. I kind of love the approach of being super aggressive if you want to be an offense that's going to play a 12, 13, 14 possession game, because you want to get the ball back fast, right? What's death to those offenses is a lack of rhythm, because the opponent's holding the ball forever. So get a turnover. If you allow a score, that's okay, right? I mean, preferably not a touchdown all the time, but they'll take sacks and negatives and turnovers in exchange for some touchdowns at times. I would think.
It's
I could
fascinating.
definitely see this working.
It's fascinating when you mentioned the teams they're not going to play. I need to look it up. I have it somewhere. UNC and Louisville have been in the ACC together for a decade. I'm thereabouts. Do you know how many times Carolina has played a football game at Louisville? None.
Oh, 0. Okay. I knew it was 1 or 0. Because the divisions in it every 6 years, and then they did a reorg.
It's crazy. Lamar Jackson came to Chapel Hill one time. Okay. That was fun. But it's kind of wild. But yeah, to go along those lines, I mean, all due respect to the schedule makers, the schedule is not great in terms of it is not like a gauntlet. I mean, I think the non-conference for UNC's pretty doable. I mean, there's a couple FCS teams in there. They open against Minnesota. They have UNC Charlotte, NC Central, James Madison. We're not sure what they're going to do now that they've had a coaching change. I think there's plenty of opportunity to gain some confidence in the early season and set yourself up to where you feel like you're playing good, try some things, get your quarterback settled in. Certainly should be some opportunity to turn it loose defensively, have Kamen Rucker and Des Evans just, get into the backfield and get to feeling good about yourself. Yeah. I mean, the team that jumps out on UNC's schedule is FSU because they hadn't played them the last 2 or 3 years. The last time they played the Seminoles, Jordan Travis, I think had just been put back at quarterback, had a great game in Chapel Hill running around all the time. Bobby Bowden had just passed because they had put the little Bobby Bowden logo on the field house over there, or one of the part of it was on the stadium. But FSU jumps out, but the schedule's doable. I mean, all due respect, this is the ACC we're talking about here. I mean, you could win the game against Duke, you could lose a game against Duke. You win a game against Pitt, you could lose a game against Pitt. I mean, a lot of these things are toss-ups, but they're certainly winnable. So yeah, I mean, yeah, they could start fast like that. They have started fast the last couple of years, and they could start fast again this year. And it could get to October, and it would be time to see what you got.
And bye week, Wake, Boston College, NC State is not the most difficult finish you could possibly draw up in this league.
You've got the schedule there?
I do, yeah.
I mean, like what we're talking, like UNC is Minnesota, UNC Charlotte, right?
Yep.
Central, is that correct?
So we still probably haven't played a good quarterback to this point. James Madison ditto because they lost their kid to Texas State. Duke, we don't know what Murphy will be, but we also really don't know if they can protect him.
New staff, new quarterback.
Pitt, Yarnell. I haven't done summer school yet. Everybody I talked to around there kind of thinks that the offense actually will be improved, and Narduzzi went out of his comfort zone to hire somebody that actually wants to run offense. So that is good. But again, personnel-wise, Pitt has not been the most attractive place to come play offensive football at in the last couple of years. So I think that we have to kind of question just how good some of the players there are on offense. Georgia Tech will score for sure. Like I think King is pretty good unless you have a really dominant front against them.
That was a great game. That UNC played them in Atlanta, and everything was a night game. The Drake Maye effect. It was a Saturday night game. It was fantastic. I mean, it was a shootout. They stormed the field after they beat UNC. I mean, I think Georgia Tech scored 22 points in the fourth quarter, which one of those things that led to Gene Chiswick's demise. That was one of those where you're like, oh, this is not going to be good for Gene the way that went. But anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, I mean, Virginia, if it's Calandra, he's kind of a cross between like Rex Grossman and Johnny Manziel, but not necessarily in a good way, right?
He runs around, man. He
does. It's just crazy. I mean, he started off lighting up Maryland, and he threw like 3 pick sixes in a quarter. I'm like, what do we got here?
I think he almost beat NC State on a Friday night because we had gone. UNC had a game. Obviously, the next day we were traveling, and I remember watching it. Like, good Lord, this guy! I think he threw like a Hail Mary on a 2-point conversion pass.
I was thinking Tony Gibson's defense is gonna get this kid at some point, right? Like, there's no way. And then eventually, I think he pump faked a bubble screen and threw it to the same guy, and NC State's like, yeah, that's not gonna work.
I'll throw Doug Flutie in there too, just to really date myself.
I like that. That's pretty good. And then Florida State, I think a reasonably high floor and some certainty with I don't think DJ's amazing, but they'll be pretty good.
I think UNC would take DJ at quarterback.
I mean, yeah, I think if you're not they're like a contender for the playoff, but not to win the playoff. I think is probably the best way I can put it. It's a bit of it's not a full rebuild, kind of a consolidation of games type year.
Yeah,
I guess if you would, and then Wake Forest, who knows with Bachmeier, Boston College. I don't know how Castellanos is going to fit in that system. Maybe well, maybe not. And then NC State, like McCall, has got to stay healthy, obviously, but he did look good in their spring game, I will say.
But to the point, these are games UNC can win. I'm not sure what I would say. I think I predicted them to go 10-2 last year, which I guess I wasn't that far off. But I'm not sure what I would do in terms of a roll the dice on a prediction. But these are winnable. These games are all winnable. The game against FSU is in Tallahassee. I don't think that's gonna. I don't think you'd pick the Tar Heels there. But these are winnable games.
Yeah, this is a really nice schedule to get. I don't know. I mean, some of the draw matters, and there are some teams that aren't historically great, but they set out to have a pretty great year, and UNC misses a lot of those. I mean, you really might play 12 ball games and not face a single quarterback who's going to end up getting drafted. Like that's, depending on what happens with DJ and Haynes King, I guess, but the rest of them probably not, right? So
I mean, how many to turn it into like a old school newspaper thing? How many ranked teams are you going to face? FSU is going to be ranked. But you know what I mean? Like there might not be any numbers beside these other teams' names.
Maybe NC State.
Sure.
But it kind of not if Tennessee smokes them early, I don't know, like which they could or NC State could hang around. Who knows? But not many. No, it's a very manageable schedule. They can get that quarterback play, like you said.
It's a favorable schedule, I believe I would say. I think I've seen some way too early ranking type things that listed as one of the weakest schedules in college football. So yeah, favorable, manageable. All of those ABLE words.
Absolutely. Adam, I really enjoyed it, man. We'll follow all your coverage all this fall. And like always on Inside Carolina, it's the best, man. I love it.
Well, we appreciate all the kind words and always appreciate your help too. We talk a lot in the fall and always appreciate your insights because you know what you're doing. And this is great. Please give my love to Chip Patterson and all the boys back at the shop. Keep them in line. I know Chip gets out of line a lot. That's just Chip. But
we just got him out of jail, just bailed him out. So
him and Scotty Scheffler. Yeah, I always appreciate you having us on. Thanks for the love you show. I see. We love you right back. And yeah, it was a great time as always.
Absolutely, man. Take care.